There was once a young man named Arun who believed that love meant holding someone close and never letting them go. He believed that if you truly loved a person, you should always know where they were, what they were thinking, who they were talking to, and whether they still felt the same way about you. At first, Arun thought this was simply care, and perhaps some of it was care, but slowly he began to notice something uncomfortable inside himself. Whenever someone he loved became distant, he became anxious. Whenever a friend did not reply to his message, he wondered whether something was wrong. Whenever someone changed their plans, he felt disappointed. Whenever he imagined losing someone, fear immediately appeared in his heart. Arun had never thought deeply about the difference between love and attachment. To him, they seemed like the same thing. He thought, if I love someone, I should want them to stay with me. But one quiet morning, after another night of worrying about someone he cared about, Arun began to wonder whether love was supposed to feel so heavy. That morning, Arun decided to take a long walk outside the city. He did not have a particular destination. He simply wanted some space from his thoughts. As he walked along a narrow path surrounded by trees, he noticed an old Buddhist monk sitting quietly near a small garden. The monk was watching the movement of the leaves as the wind passed through the branches. Arun stopped for a moment, greeted him politely, and continued walking, but after a few steps, he turned around. Something about the monk's peaceful expression made him want to ask a question. He walked back and said, "Sir, may I ask you something?" The monk smiled and nodded. Arun sat nearby and explained what had been happening in his life. He told the monk that he loved people deeply, but his love often came with fear. He was afraid of losing people, afraid of being forgotten, and afraid that people might change. Then he asked, "How can I love someone without being afraid of losing them?" The monk remained silent for a few moments before answering. He pointed toward a beautiful flower growing beside him and said, "Look at that flower. It is beautiful because it is alive today, not because it promised you that it would remain exactly the same forever." Arun looked at the flower and did not immediately understand. The monk continued, "When you see a flower, you can appreciate it, care for it, protect it from unnecessary harm, and enjoy its beauty. But can you command the flower never to change? Can you order it to remain fresh forever? Can you hold its petals tightly enough to prevent them from falling?" Arun shook his head. The monk smiled and said, "This is one of the difficulties of love. We often love something beautiful, and then we become afraid that it will change. Because of that fear, we try to control it. But the more tightly we hold something, the more suffering we may create for ourselves." Arun listened carefully. The monk explained that Buddhism teaches an important distinction between love and attachment. Love can mean caring for someone, wishing them well, respecting their freedom, and appreciating their presence. Attachment, however, can involve the belief that someone must behave in a certain way so that we can feel secure. Arun became quiet. He had never asked himself that question. He thought about his relationships and remembered how often he became upset when people did not behave as he expected. If a friend called him every day, he felt important. If the friend became busy, he felt forgotten. If someone responded quickly to his messages, he felt loved. If they responded slowly, he imagined that their feelings had changed. He began to understand that much of his suffering came not from what people actually did, but from the stories he created about what their actions meant. The monk said, "The human mind often adds a second layer to reality. Someone does not answer your message, and the simple fact is that they have not answered. But then the mind says, they do not care about me anymore. Someone changes their plans, and the simple fact is that their plans changed. But the mind says, I am not important to them. Someone needs time alone, and the simple fact is that they need time alone. But the mind says, they are leaving me. The suffering often grows in the space between what happened and the story we created about what happened. Arun thought about how many times he had suffered because of stories that might not even have been true. He remembered nights when he had looked at his phone repeatedly, waiting for a message. He remembered moments when he had imagined conversations that had never happened. He remembered how quickly his mood could change because of a single message or a period of silence. The monk was not telling him that feelings were wrong. He was teaching him to observe those feelings without immediately believing every thought connected to them. This is one of the powerful ideas found in Buddhist practice: awareness. Awareness means noticing what is happening inside you without immediately reacting to it. If fear appears, you notice the fear. If jealousy appears, you notice the jealousy. If sadness appears, you notice the sadness. You do not have to hate yourself for feeling these emotions, and you do not have to obey every emotion that appears. You can simply observe it and ask, "What is happening inside me right now?" Arun realized that he had spent most of his life reacting to his emotions instead of observing them. If he felt afraid, he sent another message. If he felt jealous, he asked questions. If he felt insecure, he looked for reassurance. He rarely stopped to understand where the feeling was coming from. The monk suggested that Arun try something very simple. The next time you feel afraid of losing someone, he said, do not immediately call them, message them, or demand an explanation. Sit quietly for a few minutes. Feel the fear. Notice where you feel it in your body. Notice the thoughts that come with it. Then ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen? And can I accept that I cannot control everything? Arun nodded. The idea sounded difficult, but he decided to try it. Over the following weeks, Arun began practicing. At first, it was uncomfortable. One evening, someone he cared about did not respond to his message for several hours. His mind immediately began creating stories. Maybe they were angry. Maybe they had found someone else to talk to. Maybe they did not care anymore. Arun felt the familiar anxiety rising inside him, and his first instinct was to send another message. But he remembered the monk's advice. He put his phone down and sat quietly. He noticed his breathing. He noticed the tension in his chest. He noticed the thoughts moving quickly through his mind. Instead of saying, "They are ignoring me," he said, "I am feeling afraid that they may be ignoring me." That small change was powerful because he was separating the feeling from the fact. After a while, he realized that he did not actually know why the person had not responded. There could have been hundreds of reasons. They might have been working, sleeping, traveling, spending time with family, or simply away from their phone. Arun understood that he had been treating his imagination like evidence. He had been suffering because he wanted certainty in a world where certainty was not always possible. This was the beginning of a new kind of love for Arun. He began to understand that loving without attachment did not mean becoming cold or distant. It did not mean refusing to care. It did not mean pretending that losing someone would never hurt. Instead, it meant learning to love while accepting the changing nature of life. People change. Feelings change. Circumstances change. Relationships change. Even we ourselves change. Buddhism often reminds us of impermanence, the idea that everything in life is constantly changing and that nothing remains exactly the same forever. At first, this idea can sound sad, but Arun slowly discovered that it could also make love more meaningful. Think about a beautiful sunset. You know it will disappear in a few minutes, but that knowledge does not make the sunset less beautiful. In fact, its temporary nature may make you appreciate it more deeply. You do not stand in front of the sunset shouting, "Stay there! Do not move!" You watch it, you appreciate its colors, and you allow it to change naturally. Love can be similar. When you understand that every moment is temporary, you may stop taking ordinary moments for granted. A simple conversation becomes valuable. A shared meal becomes valuable. A walk together becomes valuable. You do not need to possess the moment to appreciate it. Arun started practicing gratitude. Instead of constantly worrying about whether someone would remain in his life forever, he began appreciating the fact that they were part of his life today. When a friend called him, he enjoyed the conversation instead of worrying about when the next call would come. When his family spent time with him, he tried to be fully present instead of checking his phone. When he was with someone he loved, he focused on the person in front of him rather than imagining a future where everything might disappear. Gratitude means appreciating what you have instead of focusing only on what you think you might lose. Arun discovered that gratitude and attachment often move in opposite directions. Attachment says, "I need more and I need it to stay the same." Gratitude says, "I appreciate what is here right now." This did not remove his fear completely, but it changed the way he responded to it. One afternoon, Arun returned to the garden where he had first met the monk. The monk was there again, quietly watering the flowers. Arun smiled and said, "I think I am beginning to understand." The monk looked at him and asked, "Understand what?" Arun replied, "I thought loving someone meant holding on tightly. Now I think love might mean caring deeply without trying to control everything." The monk smiled and said, "That is a good beginning." Then the monk gave him another example. He picked up a small bird feather that had fallen onto the ground and placed it gently on his open hand. "If you close your hand tightly around this feather," he said, "you may damage it. But if you hold your hand gently, you allow it to remain where it is naturally." Love can be like this. Too much control can turn love into fear. Too much fear can turn care into possession. But when love is combined with respect and freedom, it becomes lighter. Arun asked, "But what if I really love someone and they leave?" The monk looked at him with kindness and said, "Then you will feel pain. Love does not give you a guarantee against pain, but pain and attachment are not the same thing. You can feel sadness without becoming bitter. You can miss someone without trying to control them. You can remember someone with gratitude without believing that your life has no meaning without them." Those words stayed with Arun for a long time. He realized that he had been trying to create a world where nothing could change because he thought that was the only way to feel safe. But life does not offer that kind of guarantee. People may leave. Plans may fail. Relationships may end. Circumstances may change. The challenge is not to build a life where nothing changes. The challenge is to develop the inner strength to remain peaceful while life changes around you. This is where self-love became important in Arun's journey. He realized that attachment often becomes stronger when we expect another person to fill a space inside us that we have not learned to care for ourselves. If we constantly need another person's attention to feel valuable, then their absence can feel like proof that we are not enough. But when we develop a healthy relationship with ourselves, we can love others without making them responsible for our entire emotional world. Arun started spending more time alone, not because he hated people, but because he wanted to become comfortable with his own company. He went for walks without his phone. He read books. He practiced English. He learned to sit quietly for a few minutes each morning. He began asking himself what he genuinely wanted from life. Slowly, he discovered interests and goals that had nothing to do with whether another person approved of him. This gave him a deeper sense of independence. Independence does not mean that you do not need anyone. Human beings naturally need connection, friendship, family, and support. Independence means that you do not completely lose yourself inside another person. You can love someone deeply and still have your own values, interests, goals, and inner stability. Arun also began to understand the difference between supporting someone and controlling them. If a person he loved made a decision, he could share his opinion, but he did not have to force them to choose what he wanted. If a friend needed space, he could respect that space. If someone had a different opinion, he did not have to treat disagreement as rejection. He began to see that healthy love allows two people to remain individuals while still sharing a meaningful connection. This was not always easy. There were moments when Arun still felt jealous or afraid. But instead of judging himself, he became curious. He would ask, "What is this feeling trying to tell me?" Sometimes jealousy showed him that he was insecure. Sometimes fear showed him that he needed reassurance. Sometimes anger showed him that a boundary had been crossed. He learned that emotions could provide information without becoming commands. One day, Arun was walking with a close friend when the friend told him that she had decided to move to another city. In the past, Arun would have immediately felt panic. He might have asked why she was leaving, how long she would be gone, and whether their friendship would remain the same. This time, he felt sadness, but he also felt gratitude. He realized that he did not have to pretend that he was happy about the change. He could honestly say, "I will miss you," while also saying, "I hope this new chapter is good for you." That was love without attachment. He could miss someone without trying to stop them. He could care without controlling. He could feel sadness without turning sadness into anger. He could accept change without pretending that change was easy. And perhaps most importantly, he could understand that another person's happiness did not always have to look exactly like the future he had imagined. As time passed, Arun's relationships became calmer. He no longer needed constant reassurance. He listened more carefully. He became less demanding. He stopped checking whether people were giving him exactly the amount of attention he expected. Instead, he began asking a different question. How can I bring kindness into this relationship? This simple question changed his behavior. Instead of asking, "What am I getting from this person?" he sometimes asked, "What can I give?" Instead of asking, "Why are they not behaving the way I want?" he asked, "Can I understand what they may be experiencing?" Instead of trying to win every disagreement, he tried to understand. This did not mean allowing people to treat him badly. Arun learned that non-attachment also includes healthy boundaries. Loving someone does not mean accepting disrespect, manipulation, or harmful behavior. You can care about someone and still say no. You can forgive someone and still choose distance. You can wish someone well without allowing them to continue hurting you. Detachment is not weakness. Sometimes walking away from an unhealthy situation is an act of self-respect. The monk explained this to Arun one day when they were sitting near the river. A tree does not hate the leaves that fall from its branches, he said. The tree simply continues to grow. In the same way, sometimes people are part of your life for a season, sometimes for many years, and sometimes for a lifetime. Your responsibility is not to force every person to remain. Your responsibility is to live with wisdom, kindness, and awareness. Arun looked at the river flowing in front of them. He noticed that the water never stopped moving. The river does not hold yesterday's water, the monk said. It allows the water to move forward, and because it moves, it remains alive. Arun understood the lesson. Holding on to the past could prevent him from experiencing the present. He had spent so much time worrying about losing people that he sometimes failed to enjoy being with them. He had been physically present, but mentally somewhere else, fighting imaginary battles against a future that had not arrived. From that day forward, Arun practiced being present. When someone spoke to him, he tried to listen without planning his reply. When he ate, he tried to notice the taste of the food. When he walked, he noticed the movement of his body and the sounds around him. When he spent time with someone he loved, he tried to appreciate that moment without asking the future to promise him anything. Slowly, life became lighter. He still loved deeply, but his love no longer felt like a chain. It felt like an open hand. And perhaps that is one of the most beautiful lessons we can take from this story. To love without attachment is not to love less. It is to love with greater freedom, wisdom, and peace. When you love without attachment, you stop treating people as possessions. You stop thinking, "You belong to me." Instead, you think, "I am grateful to share part of this journey with you." You stop demanding that people remain exactly as they were when you first met them. You allow them to grow, and you allow yourself to grow too. You understand that relationships are living things. They need care, honesty, respect, and freedom. And when change eventually comes, as it always does in one form or another, you do not have to become empty. You can carry the memories, the lessons, the gratitude, and the love forward with you. Arun never forgot the lesson of the flower. Years later, whenever he felt afraid of losing something he loved, he remembered that beautiful flower beside the monk. He remembered that the flower was beautiful precisely because it was temporary. He remembered that life was not asking him to possess every beautiful thing. Life was inviting him to appreciate it while it was there. So if you are struggling with attachment today, perhaps take a quiet moment and ask yourself what you are really afraid of losing. Is it the person, or is it the feeling they give you? Are you trying to love them, or are you trying to control the future because you are afraid of being hurt? Are you appreciating the relationship as it exists today, or are you constantly demanding promises about tomorrow? You do not need to answer these questions immediately. Simply observe them. And if someone you love is with you today, appreciate them. Listen to them. Speak kindly. Be present. Do not waste today's beautiful moment worrying about tomorrow's possible loss. If someone needs space, respect it. If someone chooses a different path, wish them well when you can. If someone leaves your life, allow yourself to grieve, but remember that their departure does not erase your value or your ability to love again. Love deeply, but do not disappear inside your love. Care for others, but care for yourself too. Give affection, but do not demand control. Enjoy the present, while accepting that the present will change. And when fear appears, do not immediately run from it. Sit with it for a moment. Breathe. Observe it. Ask what it is trying to teach you. Perhaps you will discover that underneath the fear of losing someone is a deeper fear of being alone, being forgotten, or feeling that you are not enough. Those fears deserve compassion, not punishment. You are enough even when someone chooses a different path. You are enough even when someone does not respond immediately. You are enough even when a relationship changes. You are enough even when someone leaves. Your value does not depend entirely on another person's attention. The goal is not to become someone who never needs anyone. The goal is to become someone who can love others while remaining connected to themselves. And perhaps one day, when you can hold someone close without needing to own them, when you can enjoy their presence without demanding that they stay forever, when you can let them grow without feeling threatened by their growth, and when you can accept change without believing that change has destroyed your life, you will understand something very simple and very powerful. Love is not about holding tighter. Sometimes love is about holding gently enough to let life breathe. And that is how love becomes lighter. That is how relationships become healthier. That is how the heart learns peace. And perhaps most importantly, that is how we learn to love without attachment.